Welcome to Beware of Spoilers. I am Adam. It is 9:15 on Saturday. And I know I said I was going to talk about DMZ Part 2, but we're talking about The Flash instead. Because I watched the new episode of The Flash last night and then ended up watching a ton of Impractical Jokers instead. So we're going to talk about that. So, in this episode of The Flash, we are back to being with, present day timeline in a world where, everything is being changed and no one's really sure why. And that's not happening right here. Like, it doesn't happen until the very end, but it's, it is the present time where we were at the end of the last episode where the brush disappeared. Now, this episode is kind of, I like this episode. This episode felt a little bit like a return to form for me, where it felt like, this is what this show kind of made its bread and butter on. Villain of the week, we have a bad guy, and he's trying to do something criminally, and he is, doing his best, and Barry has to stop him. But Barry is kind of locked down, and he is stuck with, He is stuck with, Carver, and they are being held hostage by Goldface, who is... I do really like that they doubled down on what people hated about, there was a vocal contingent of people when Goldface appeared the first time, back in season 6? Season 5? I think it was season 5, because Amunet was there. But he, it's like, a lot of what people didn't like about him, they doubled down on. But I really like it. I like that, this character, he's kind of funny, and he's got depth to him, and it's like, I studied literature at Yale, and I'm surrounded by Philistines. It's probably the best line, I would say, of the season so far. It's Damien Poitier is great in this, it's really kind of an amusing episode, because it's Barry trying to do that. The subplot with Caitlin and Snow, Caitlin and Frost, going on the inadvertent double date didn't really do anything for me. I know why they're doing this, and it's because they need to bring back a reference to who the fuck, Ronnie is before, he comes back later this season. Because, as I said, this feels like a final season kind of season. And it kind of, feels like it feels kind of forced there. What else was there? There was something else I didn't like, and that was, not Caitlin, what they've done with, Allegra, I'm not a huge fan of. Because Allegra, to me, I've wanted to like Allegra, and I think that after a certain point, again, for me at least, her what's I'm looking for here? Her insecurity, went from, a fun, a 1 or 2 episode kind of arc to kind of deal with. It went from that to, okay, so now every episode is going to be the same thing, where we're retreading the same thing over and over again. And it's cool we're getting to see her do something different. And she has a little bit of confidence and all of that. That's cool. I would just prefer it wasn't tied to her dating someone. And her relationship with, her relationship with, Chester. I feel like that's kind of a misstep, to make her personality change so dependent on this guy. And they're trying to make, I see what they're trying to do. They're trying to make Chester and Allegra into the new Cisco and Caitlin. Because the thing is, if this show gets renewed for another season, I don't know how likely it is that Caitlin comes back for season 9. Because, I mean, I think the only two cast members who really definitively need this season, or in a new season, are, I think you need Barry and Iris. I think that's really it. I think that, you know, and even then, I think you could probably get away without Iris for a little bit, but you do need at least Barry there for a good amount of the season. And if Barry's not there, it'll feel weird. So, part of the problem comes from the fact that this show is, you know, kind of, you know, trying to set the future, I think is what the right way to put what this show is trying to do as. Like, it's trying to set up where it could go next year. So, making Allegra into Caitlin and putting them in that relationship with Allegra and Chester, it's not the same as Cisco and Caitlin. And you know, the fact that they're dating alone changes the dynamic vastly. But it still doesn't quite feel right that it feels kind of like not a 180, but it feels like it's kind of, you know, being pushed too soon without as much development as it could have had, especially considering that, like, in the past there wasn't really too much of that. And it's like, look, I get it. I understand where they're going, but I'm not a huge... Like, I would have preferred Allegra gained autonomy on her own without needing to be defined by another character. Because it seems like everything she has done so far has been defined by someone else. You know, her relationship to her cousin is one defining thing. Her relationship to, you know, to Iris, getting her the job, promoting her, and all of that. Now her relationship to Chester being, you know, that. And she kind of has... They make a joke about it on Parks and Recreation about Rashida Jones's character, how she kind of just picks up the relationships, like she picks up the personalities of whoever she's dating. And it's like, that's the kind of thing that, you know, it feels like she's doing to an extent. Where it's like she picks up the personality of whoever she's around, and that kind of becomes her dominant personality trait. And I'm not really a fan of that. I would rather they do a more cohesive kind of, you know, define the character, flesh it out. Because the character is interesting enough on her own. And I think that the actress who plays her, what's her name? Kayla Compton. I think she does a good enough job playing the character in each iteration, but it feels almost like they're dealing with there was someone who had something similar where it was like they changed personalities on a regular basis. Who was it? I feel like there was definitely someone like that on one of these shows, where it's like she's playing multiversal variants of herself, which is not what they call them on CW. They call them doppelgangers, but still, it's like it feels like that's what she's doing, and she's playing, you know, oh well, this is, you know, her from this universe, and this is her from a different universe, and this is her from a different universe, and it's like, well, that's not what's happening here. I hope that, you know, we get a move on toward the actual, like, and that's the thing, too. I don't know why I'm saying, can we get a move on to the actual storyline, because this is what I've been asking for years, is, like, the slow burn of what's going on, and don't force me into the storyline, have me confront the villain, and then have it be like, okay, well, we know who the villain is at the mid-season finale, and then we gotta do something really stupid to keep the villain recurring past this point. Like, it's kind of silly. It's like when you look at, what was it, like, Cicada was the worst with that. Like, I'm sorry, but, like, ever since they got into Module, the show has gotten a lot better. Modular, the show's gotten a lot better, where it's like each little bit, you know, has a little self-contained story. But I don't know. I feel like there's definitely room for improvement. And I think that for me, the improvement needs to happen with, it really needs to start with Allegra. I feel Allegra is, you know, if Allegra is going to be this kind of, you know, going into another season and she's going to be replacing Caitlin, assuming that, you know, they don't have her back next year, she's got to replace two characters, basically. Like, they got to play, like, she's got to, like, next season, if she comes back, and again, she just had her second kid, or is currently pregnant with her second kid, If she comes back next season, she's got to play two characters. She's playing Frost and she's playing Caitlin. And unless they kill one of them off, and at this point, neither character's really doing anything. It feels like it feels like she's kind of like the Pope Emeritus at this point, where it's like she's still there and she's still kicking around the Vatican and not really like doing anything though, because everyone else around her is kind of still doing their job, but she's kind of like retired and still like working there, kind of. It feels a little weird because she doesn't really like, from what we've seen so far, she hasn't really done too much out of 7 episodes. Granted, one episode was entirely a flashback and she wasn't in it, but she hasn't really done too much. And to put her in this dating, family thing, it feels like they're just trying to find something for her to do because they need to get people accustomed to Allegra and Chester being the people, the guy in the chair, collectively. I don't know, it's just, it feels off. And it's not like it feels off because I miss the old dynamic. Like, I can deal with a new dynamic. It's just, it feels like it's clunky getting into the new dynamic. Moving from the old paradigm of what was going on into the new one is not exactly a smooth transition at this point, which is what's causing the problems that for me at least, this show is having. And that while that transition's a little bumpy, we're hitting some turbulence on it, it would be smoother if it just ended off with, if they just ended off things. What else was there? Not really too much else to talk about with that episode. It's, it was a pretty light, pretty standard episode, and, for that aspect of it, it worked, but, and then it was also kind of weird that, Iris wasn't in the episode really at all. I feel like that was that felt weird to me. I'm not entirely sure why, but that felt weird to me. Maybe it's because even when she was trapped in the mirror dimension, there were very few episodes where she just didn't appear at all, really. And she doesn't really appear till the end. And then that was the other thing, it's CCPD has one precinct and it's taken hostage and no one notices. It feels, again, strange that's the case. And the hostage situation is the most, and I think that's part of it too, is it's a little tonally jarring to go from hostage situation, and yeah, there's levity in the hostage situation where you have, what's his name, you have, Damien Poitier doing a great job of, I had to look it up, he's not related to Sidney Poitier, but he did play Thanos, in the Avengers. He was the Thanos at the end of the Avengers, but he's good and he's got the levity, but still, it's a hostage situation where cops are being held hostage and they're exploding bracelets on people. So it's a tense situation. And then to go from that to, oh, we're going on a double date. Yay, we're going on a double date. This will be fun. And it's it feels strange. And again, I get why, but this A-plot, B-plot marriage doesn't quite work for this episode, I don't think. And I think it may just be the issue of they need to lay so much narrative groundwork before certain points in the season, and we'll see how it plays out for the rest of the season, but I think that coupling those two things creates a jarring tonal shift when you go from scene to scene. When you go from Barry being held hostage by Goldface, I think I called him Golden Face before, but Goldface, and, when that's happening, and then going to, and that's the thing too, it's oh, we took out the cell tower. It's oh, so that's going to create a big issue broadly, not just for the police precinct. So, yeah, it's kind of interesting that kind of happened. So yeah. I do like that she figured out that he was the Flash, though. And I like her being brought into the fold. I didn't like her character to begin with, but she started to grow on me. So we'll wrap up there for this morning. I will be going to see, in about 3 hours, actually, I'll be going to see The Outfit with Mark Rylance and, what's his name? Dylan O'Brien. And we'll be back with that later today. So until then, have a great rest of your day.